Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Her eyes slowly skimmed the ceiling, counting the tiles above her one final time in an attempt to get some sleep. 190. Again, whispered Hinata. It had been 2 weeks since the 6 paths of pain had attacked and destroyed the village, and only a week ago since she had woken up. While she was unconscious, Yamato had rebuilt the hospital in record time for everyone who had been severely injured. Tents were also set up outside for anyone who had minor injuries. Out of everyone in the hospital, herself, Kakashi, and Chuji's dad had been the worst off. All of them had been on the brink of death, and it was all thanks to Tsunade and Sakura that any of them were still here. Rebuilding of the village had begun immediately. The Kazekage, Garo of the Sand, had sent out as many ninjas and medics he could to lend them a hand. Even Kankuro and Temari had come to help them out. During her 2-week stay in the hospital, so far only her teammates, Niji and Sakura, had come to visit her. Her mind wandered to her conversation this afternoon with Niji. Hayashishama has requested that only a few people may visit you and for a guard at your door at all times. He wants you to recover as quickly as possible, said Niji, pouring her a glass of water. He and Hanabi-san are on their way back and should be here tomorrow night. Hinata had simply nodded. Her father had become less strict and harsh over the years, but to simply disobey an order he had given was practically like committing suicide. Has he attempted to see me at all? Niji sighed softly, his eyes shifting to the door where Ko was standing guard before continuing. He knew exactly who she meant. No, I'm afraid he has not. Tears threatened to fall, but she quickly wiped them away with the back of her hand. Why haven't you come, Naruto-kun? Hinata whispered to herself, eyes closing. I want to see you, just to make sure you're okay. Even though she had confessed her feelings to Naruto, Hinata wasn't expecting to hear an answer from him, or at least not one right away for that matter. At the time, she had only wanted him to know the truth, that there was someone out there that did love him. However, confessing to him on the battlefield hadn't been her ideal choice, but under the circumstances, if she were to die by the hands of the enemy, Naruto at least had the right to know about her feelings. Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard the soft sound of tree branches being rustled, as if someone was jumping on them. She had been hearing it for the past week, but had ignored it since it was probably just the wind. However, tonight she knew the wind was at a standstill, seeing as her window was slightly open and the curtains had not moved. Someone's outside. Has someone actually been watching me the past week? Slowly, Hinata crawled out of her bed, grabbed her crutch, and shuffled across the floor, lightly brushing the curtain out of the way so she could have a glimpse outside. Even though none of her legs were broken, Sakura had suggested she use a crutch for balance since the strength in her legs hadn't fully returned from being in bed for over a week. The full moon shone brightly in the night sky, and at the foot of the tree closest to her window was the one person she had hoped would come visit her. Naruto was pacing back and forth, and even with her window open, she could barely hear what he was saying to himself. After quickly thinking it over, Hinata turned her gaze to door and activated her Byakugan. She had been expecting to see someone, but there was no one there. I thought Niji said he would be guarding my door tonight. So why? A soft smile spread across her face as she shuffled out the door and into the dark hallway. Again, there was no one there, and the only sound that could be heard were Kakashi's snores in the room across from hers. Closing the door behind her, she made her way down the hall, hoping the stairs wouldn't cause her too much trouble. So, Hinata, nice to see you back on your feet. You know about what you said 2 weeks ago, goddammit. That sounds so stupid, hissed Naruto, hitting the tree trunk with his fist. He closed his eyes in frustration and tried to slow down his breathing. It had been a week since she had woken up, and the first thing he was told was that he couldn't see her right away. Direct orders had been given from Hayashi, who had heard of what had happened to Konoha and his daughter. He had almost picked a fight with the Hyuga guarding the front door, but Niji had pulled him away and lectured him to calm down. Unfortunately, you can't see Hinata-sama right now. What the hell are you talking about? I have to talk to her. Come on, Niji, can't I just see her for a few minutes? I'm sure you can keep that small of a secret from her father. And what, pray tell, do you plan to talk to her about, Naruto? His eyes widened. Averting his gaze with the Hyuga, his eyes stared at the ground while trying to think of an answer. I really haven't. First, think about what you are going to say. I am the only one she has told about what exactly happened between the two of you during the fight with Pain. Upsetting her right now is not dash. You think I would do something like that? Niji raised his hand, silencing the blonde ninja. Just think about what you're going to say to her. The Hyuga turned to return to the hospital. Oh, and one more thing. Do not think of coming at night to see her, even though her window is open and I am the one guarding her. Naruto chuckled softly. If that wasn't a dead giveaway. He turned and looked up at the window to Hinata's current room. For the past week, he had been standing here or in the branches above, contemplating on what the hell he was going to say to her. An hour ago, Niji had left his post at Hinata's door, eyeing him with a glare that practically said, "You better not be here when I come back." He clenched his hands into fists, his nails digging into his palms as he remembered the fight with Pain and Hinata's words, shocking him so much he was speechless. As soon as the words had left her mouth, everything mysterious about the girl was suddenly clear in his eyes. The way she blushed and stuttered whenever he was around, the fainting spells, and her geniality towards him. All the girls acted like that around Sasuke. I guess I just never thought it could happen to me, so I never noticed. Damn it, I still don't know what I'm going to say to her. It was difficult to find the words when he himself did not know what exactly it was he felt for her. All in all, she was one of his precious people, Nakama, but had he ever seen her as more than a comrade? He had never really had a long conversation with the Hyuga heiress, but because they shared the same pain of wanting acknowledgement and being called failures, they had formed a bond. Through the years, he had kept his eyes on Sakura, oblivious of Hinata's feelings. At first he saw her as dark, plain, and timid when they were children. But now she's really pretty with her long midnight hair. She doesn't dress like Ino and Sakura-chan who show off their bodies, but a blush spread across his cheeks at a comment Kiba had made about how the size of her chest had nothing to do with the bulkiness of her large coat. And yet she was the very first person to say she loved him. After hearing those words, he was overwhelmed with the feeling of want, happiness, fear, and confusion. For years, he had hoped and dreamed for those exact words to be said to him, but now that they had been said, he had no idea what to do. Why can't I figure out what to say to her? Why, you could start by saying hello, in Naruto-kun. Naruto whipped around to see Hinata standing behind him. She was leaning on her crutch for support as her other hand was on the hospital wall for balance. A blush spread across his cheeks as he took in her black tank top and sweatpants. What are you doing outside? Must be freezing, stuttered Naruto, shrugging off his orange and black jacket. The blush didn't disappear from his cheeks as he walked over to her and placed the warm jacket on her shoulders. His fingers brushed against her soft skin, which only caused his face to turn redder than before. Thank you, whispered Hinata. Naruto smiled softly before shifting his gaze away from hers. So why are you up? Shouldn't you be sleeping? Hinata's face became as red as Naruto's, her gaze moving down to her feet. I couldn't sleep, and then I heard you outside. Scratching the back of his head, Naruto shifted uncomfortably from foot to foot. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. Hinata shook her head, mumbling a soft, "It's okay," that Naruto barely heard. He stared down at the girl before him, still at a loss of words. Sighing softly, he tried to make conversation. Would you like to sit with me, Hinata? She looked up at the blonde ninja, the blush growing on her cheeks. Where would you like to sit? in Naruto-kun. His eyes scanned the area, looking for the non-existent bench that used to sit outside the hospital. Finally, the thick branch on the tree he had been pacing under caught his attention. How about up there? After she nodded, Naruto wrapped his arm around Hinata's waist, pulling her close to him and propping the crutch up against the side of the hospital. Hold on. In a single leap, they reached their destination. Naruto gently set Hinata down before taking a seat beside her. Silence persisted between the two, neither of them really knowing what to say to the other. Naruto stared up at the sky, scratching the back of his head while Hinata stared down at the ground, her fingers fiddling with the material of her sweatpants. Were you injured badly after the fight with Pain? Asked Hinata, keeping her gaze on the ground. Just a little. I've had to take it easy for the past few weeks, whispered Naruto. Whenever he was around Hinata, he never felt the need to show his tough side and could always be himself. What about you? How are you feeling after Pain? He couldn't finish. The incident was still fresh in his mind when Pain's chakra blade had pierced her body. Hinata's hand came to rest on her chest, and Naruto saw the scar from where she had been stabbed. He hadn't noticed it until now. It still hurts just a little bit, but Sakura-chan healed me, so I know I'm going to be okay. I've still got some bruises here and there, and I'm still a bit sore. Naruto's eyes narrowed with guilt. If only he had been stronger, more aware of Pain's power. Hell, had he not left the village, none of this would have happened. Hinata noticed the pained look on his face, and without thinking, she placed her hand on his shoulder. Don't blame yourself, Naruto-kun. It's my own fault for jumping in like that. I shouldn't have. Stop. Don't ever think like that, whispered Naruto. He was both nervous and glad that they were finally talking about what had happened. If you hadn't done that, even though I did transform, Pain would have captured me, and it would have been just like what happened with Gaara, so please don't think like that. Naruto turned his head to look Hinata in the eye. Why, you're not scared of me, are you? Hinata's eyes widened. They said I was pretty scary looking. Something about a fox skeleton, and then almost going completely nine tails, and I. No. I'll never be scared of you, Naruto-kun, Hinata whispered without stuttering once. I've known about the nine tails since I was a child. My father told me, and never once have I been scared of you. A sort of warm feeling of acceptance fell over Naruto. It was something he had never felt before, not even with his own teammates. Hinata took a deep breath and continued. I meant what I said before I attacked Pain. Her hands clenched on top of her legs. I've always admired you, had a crush on you, and later realized that it wasn't just a crush but something more. And I would have maybe said something sooner, but I. Hinata, interrupted Naruto. How long have you felt this way about me? Since the first day I saw you at the academy. Whenever I looked at you, I would always feel this intense and warm feeling in my heart. I watched you from. Hinata dipped her head down, and, before he could respond, she whispered ever so softly to him. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. Naruto tilted to his head to the side. Why? Hinata, you have nothing to be sorry for. Back in our academy days, I knew you were alone and didn't have any friends. Blue eyes narrowed slightly as the painful memories slowly entered his mind. The cruel taunts and harsh words from the other ninjas was something that was burned in the back of his mind. I wanted to be your friend so much. I wanted to play with you and talk to you. Naruto shifted closer since her voice was just barely above a whisper. But I was such a coward, and I thought maybe you wouldn't want to be friends with someone like me who was always making Mr. Dash. Enough. Hearing his stern voice caused Hinata to raise her head, but she kept her eyes downcast, unable to look into his. Please don't apologize for that. But I dash. It's okay, Hinata. I don't regret anything that happened in the past, no matter how painful it was. Nodding softly, Hinata shifted her gaze to look at Naruto out of the corner of her eye, his own staring up at the full moon above them. Silence fell between them, but it wasn't awkward at all. almost peaceful. Hinata, I have to be honest, like I always have been with you. His gaze fell on her own, piercing blue against soft lilac. About what you said 2 weeks ago, I don't dash. You like Sakura-chan, right? Interrupted Hinata. She had always known Naruto harbored deep feelings for his teammate. It had been obvious to everyone. His eyes widened momentarily before the hand closest to hers lifted to scratch the back of his head, a trademark sign that he was getting nervous. I don't really know what it is I feel for Sakura-chan anymore. Maybe it's just a crush, maybe it's something more. But then again, I've been asking her out for years, and she's always said no. I guess it's time I moved on. But, in all honesty, I don't know what love is. Hinata nodded softly, knowing perfectly well why he didn't know anything about love. However, when I'm around you, I feel at ease, he whispered softly. Memories of seeing her before the final round of the Chunin exams flashed before him. On the way to his fight against Niji, he had walked to the training grounds and found Hinata standing there. For the first time in his life, he had let his guard down, telling her why he acted tough all the time to hide the pain of failing. You were the first person that I ever told why I act tough all the time, and I showed my weakness in front of you. I was so down that day, but then you. His hand left the back of his neck, slowly to rest on top of hers, blue eyes still locked on lilac ones. You cheered me up by telling me how I was a proud failure, and that true strength is making mistakes, but having the guts to get back up. Hinata was too distracted by his words to notice his hand on hers. You always seem to leave me speechless. Back then you did, and when you jumped in to save me from pain, it happened again. His hand lightly squeezed hers, finally getting Hinata's attention that Naruto was holding her hand. I want to find out more about you, Hinata, and whether we just end up staying friends or perhaps something more. A dark blush slowly spread across Naruto's cheeks, his eyes finally leaving hers to stare at the ground below. Hinata's cheeks were redder than his while she stared at their hands. His on top of hers. She could feel the calluses and blisters on the palms from all his training on the back of her hand. How many times had she always dreamed and imagined his hand holding hers? Taking a deep breath and gathering all the courage she could muster, she turned her hand in his, interlocking their fingers together and lightly squeezing back. We can start out slow, Naruto-kun. Jay, just talking like this is a good start, she whispered softly, holding onto his hand as if it were a lifeline. Naruto squeezed back just as hard, scooting closer to her. Slow would be nice. I really don't want to start anything serious until this whole mess is over. All right, and even if you do come to realize that you still like Sakura-chan, we will always be friends. His trademark smile appeared. Thanks, Hinata. Their eyes left each other's to stare back up at the full moon, and the comfortable silence returned as they listened to the sound of the night. Oh, I almost forgot, said Naruto, reaching up on the branch above them and grabbing a small bouquet of lilacs. Smiling, he passed them to Hinata, who grabbed them with her free hand. I found these outside the village today, and they reminded me of your eyes. Hinata brought the flowers up to her nose, sighing contently as the soft aroma from them relaxed her even more. Thank you very much, Naruto-kun. Resting the flowers on the branch beside her, Hinata was about to suggest she return to her room before anyone noticed she was missing, but then a thought came to mind. Have you been sitting outside my window the past week? Naruto stiffened slightly, a guilty smile spreading across his face. Why, yeah, that's been me. I've wanted to talk to you, but I wasn't sure on exactly what to say. Didn't anyone see you? Sakura-chan did a few times, and Niji did today. Both told me to grow some balls and just go see you instead of hiding in this tree. Hinata giggled softly and turned her head to look into his eyes again, a soft blush dusting her cheeks as she once again summoned up her courage. Tomorrow, would you like to go for a walk with me, Naruto-kun? We could talk some more, and I want to get to know more about you too. Naruto's eyes widened slightly before his face cracked into a grin. Are you asking me out on a date? The blush spread like wildfire across her face, and all Hinata could do was nod. He laughed softly. Sure. I have to help out with rebuilding the village first, but after I'm done, I'd like to go for a walk with you. That is, if you're allowed to leave the hospital? I think going for a walk would be fine, but I just can't overdo it. As long as it's before my father comes back, then everything will be fine. Smiling softly, Naruto released Hinata's hand to stand up. He raised his arm up to stretch out his body before kneeling down to offer his back to Hinata. Let's get you back into bed. Can't have you tired for our walk tomorrow. Returning the smile, Hinata nodded and crawled onto Naruto's back, her arms wrapping around his neck. He could feel the heat radiating off her face as his hands reached down to pass her the bouquet of lilacs before grasping her thighs. Naruto jumped down from the tree and headed back into the hospital at a slow pace. His own face was beet red, feeling her chest pressed into his back. I think having both my senseis as perverts has rubbed off on me the wrong way. Sakura's hand shook as she watched Naruto and Hinata walk back into the hospital, her breath coming out in short, shaky pants while her other hand was clenched against her chest. She had come to check on Hinata but discovered that the Hyuga heiress was missing. Slightly panicking, she was about to search the hospital, but movement and voices outside caught her attention. Drawing back the curtain slightly, she watched as Hinata and Naruto sat in the tree talking. What had happened between them during the fight with Pain was a mystery to everyone. She had seen Naruto outside of Hinata's room countless times and could not figure out what the hell he was so nervous about. At first, she had thought it was just Naruto feeling guilty that Hinata had gotten hurt on his behalf. Practically everyone in the village except for Naruto himself knew that Hinata had a crush on him, which was obviously the reason she had gone down to help him. However, as she watched them talk, and saw as Naruto grasped Hinata's hand in his, it was obvious that something had changed. Had Hinata confessed to Naruto before she was struck down by Pain? But as the two continued to talk and move closer to each other, it became clear that she had. But what Sakura could not figure out was why did it bother her so much when Naruto handed Hinata a small bouquet of flowers and then knelt down to let her climb on his back. Her body shook with jealousy and betrayal as if Naruto had just cheated on her. Naruto had always been asking her out for dates, and, like always, she refused. The date requests had lessened a lot since he got back from his training mission with Jiraiya. Sensing that Naruto and Hinata were getting close, she opened the window wider and darted outside. Landing on the tree branch that moments ago occupied the said couple, Sakura quickly hid herself in the leaves and watched through the open window. The door opened, and Naruto carried Hinata to her bed, turning to set her down. I'll see you tomorrow, Hinata. Have a good night, Naruto-kun. Sakura could see the red blush quickly spread across Naruto's face as he reached down to grasp Hinata's hand, brought it to his lips, and lightly kissed the back of it. You too, Hinata. Sleep well. Once again, Sakura's hand clenched against her chest. Why? Why does it hurt? I don't have those kinds of feelings towards him. Do I? Or is it that I'm jealous that he... She concealed herself more in the trees, watching Naruto stroll out of the hospital, a great big smirk plastered across his face as he hummed an unknown tune. Neji finally returned, hoping he had given Naruto enough time to talk with Hinata. Upon seeing the said blonde ninja and the big smirk on his face, he knew the answer to his question. Naruto didn't even notice the Hyuga as he walked by, still humming and smirking. Shaking his head, Neji walked back into the hospital to return to his post, but stopped momentarily to regard the female medic Kunoichi hiding in the trees. Does it hurt because the one you yearn for isn't here? Or is it because deep down you've always had hidden feelings for your other teammate? His statement was met with silence. Either way, you need to move on and stop sulking in the past. Let go, even if it will be painful. Neji didn't even wait for a response as he headed back into the hospital. Climbing the few staircases, he returned to his post at Hinata's room. Opening the door slightly, He peeked in to find her fast asleep and a small smile on her lips. Even when times are tough and everything around you is going downhill, good things will arise from the ashes. The clouds rumbled in the sky before erupting with bright lightning, almost shaking the ground below. None of the villagers even jumped at the thunderous weather above. It had been raining hard for 3 days, and rebuilding the village had been put to a standstill for now. However, there was still a lot of work to be done. With the ground wet, it was a lot easier for Yamato to continue his job of filling in the crater that was once Konoha. Most of the rubble from the previous buildings had finally been moved and disposed of, and now they could start to rebuild Konoha on its original foundation. Kakashi turned from watching Yamato and continued his work along with the other ninjas, searching through the wreckage to see what had and had not survived the blast. A soft sigh escaped his lips, watching his footing on the muddy ground as he moved to a different location to search. During the attack, this was the closest he had come to being killed, so close that he had even seen his father on the other side. 1 full month had passed since Pain had attacked and been defeated. However, the sorrow and pain was still fresh in everyone's minds. 3 days ago, a message from the wreckage in the Hidden Cloud Village had brought even more painful news, especially for his 2 students. Sasuke was involved with Akatsuki, and now both Naruto and Sakura were heartbroken when they heard the news. No one could make heads or tails as to why Sasuke would join up with Akatsuki until Naruto made a comment about what had happened when he almost went 9 tails and about his discussion with his father. The masked person was the one who controlled the 9 tails, and this realization reminded Tsunade of a theory once proposed to her by Jiraiya, that Uchiha Madara may still be alive. Naruto, Sakura, Tsunade, Yamato, 2 of the village elders, and Kakashi himself met to discuss Sasuke's involvement. They threw theories back and forth in attempts to uncover his reason for working with the man who caused the 9 tails attacks. Tsunade had been very suspicious of the elders, for their eyes were downcast and any questions directed at them were not answered. It was obvious that they knew something, threatened to have their minds read by Inoichi. The 2 elders told the truth, but only moments before the leader of the Yamanaka clan could place his hands on their heads. Thus, the true story behind the annihilation of the Uchiha clan was unveiled to the group present. It was obvious that Sasuke had learned the truth and had joined up with Akatsuki to take his revenge on Konoha for Itachi. But the question was, would he only take his revenge on the elders and Danzu for this treachery, or the entire village? Tsunade had dismissed them all, only after making them all swear on their lives not to tell a single soul of what they had discovered. Another sigh escaped his lips, his eye looking up to the forest in the distance where he knew both Sakura and Naruto were contemplating what they would do now that their once comrade just might be their enemy. Kakashi-sensei. The silver-haired ninja looked up from his work to see Hinata walking towards him. She had an umbrella propped up against her shoulder as she carried a tray full of hot drinks over to him. Hinata, thank you very much, smiled Kakashi, taking one of the drinks from her and taking a sip. That hits the spot. Tsunade-sama is suggesting everyone take a break for a while and come inside. She doesn't want anyone catching a cold. Kakashi nodded. I'm surprised that she's still here. Hasn't she left for the 5 Kage meeting in the Land of Iron to discuss Akatsuki yet? The Hyuga heiress shook her head. No, not yet. She wants to make sure that everything is in order here before she leaves. Well, hopefully when she attends this meeting, a solution can be found. Though I highly doubt it. I don't think the 5 Kages have ever really seen eye to eye. Hinata nodded and turned to leave, but stopped suddenly. Have you seen Naruto-kun today, Kakashi-sensei? The question didn't surprise him at all. For the past 2 weeks, Naruto and Hinata had been seen regularly together. Ino was convinced they were a couple now and giggled whenever the 2 were spotted together. However, Kakashi knew his student well, and to all of a sudden jump into a serious relationship was not like Naruto. Kakashi raised his free hand and pointed to the trees. He's still having a hard time with the news from the wreckage. Even though most of the village was aware that Sasuke was now a member of Akatsuki, the details behind it was very tight-lipped to only those who had been in the meeting. Everyone had been warned, of course, in case the Uchiha was suddenly spotted near Konoha. The Hyuga heiress nodded. With small sad smile on her lips, she turned around to pass drinks off to the other ninjas. When the last cup was passed off, Kakashi watched as she returned her tray to the food tent a short distance away and headed off in the direction of the forest. The rain had completely soaked his clothes. However, he was numb to the usual chill felt when soaked from head to toe. News of Sasuke joining Akatsuki and the real reason the Uchiha clan had been wiped out weighed heavily on Naruto's heart. Just the simple thought of Sasuke becoming his enemy. He could now hear Itachi's words crystal clearly in his mind. "You want to bring Sasuke back, don't you? But what if he doesn't want to go?" asked Itachi. "I'll do whatever I have to do to bring him back. By force if necessary. If all were to go well and Sasuke goes quietly, that is one thing. But what if it's the opposite? You said you thought of Sasuke as a brother. Well, what would you do if Sasuke were to attack Konoha?" "What? Why would Sasuke?" "Sasuke is still pure. He could easily be colored by anything. If that should happen, would you be able to stop him? Even if it meant killing him? Could you weigh Sasuke's life against the village?" "I'd protect Konoha and find a way to stop Sasuke without killing him." "Such a child. You talk of nothing but pipe dreams. There are times when a ninja must make painful choices. Someone said the same thing to me before, but there's no choice. I won't bend my words. That's what being a ninja means to me." Suddenly something was being forced into his mouth. "MMPH. I've given you some of my power. I hope the day never comes when you have to use it." He let out a shaky breath, his hands clenching hard enough that he was drawing blood. Taking a step back, he let his body hit the tree behind him, his eyes turning up to the darkened sky. Piercing blue eyes didn't even flinch as lightning illuminated the sky before darkening once again. "What are we going to do, Naruto?" He didn't need to look up into the branches to know it was Sakura. How long she had been there, he didn't know. Both of them had been lost in their own little world since the meeting with Tsunade and the others. I don't know, Sakura-chan." Pain's words of accomplishing peace, love breeds sacrifice, which in turn inspires anger and hatred, were echoing in his head. Sasuke had lost his brother Itachi, who had been forced to kill his clan, and now wanted revenge on Konoha. And, for the life of him, Naruto couldn't blame Sasuke at all for the hate and pain he held towards the village. He too now understood the feeling of revenge after his master had been killed. No wonder Sasuke didn't want to fight me. I didn't understand him at all at the time. Anger, hate, revenge, it was starting to spread like wildfire throughout the lands. Would there ever come a time when people would truly understand each other like Jiraiya had envisioned? Would there ever be peace? His frustration started to build as his mind went in circles, going over the same thing but not arriving at any answers. Naruto shifted off the tree and started to walk, not caring where his feet took him. Sakura was silent as she watched her teammate walk away, for she could not find any words that could help or fix the situation. The storm above fully rained on him as the tree coverage lessened. He could only perceive his feet splashing and the rain pounding. From a distance, it would look as if the rain was simply pouring down his face, but upon closer inspection, there were also silent tears that sought release. "Sasuke, Jiraiya. Dad, what should I do?" choked Naruto. Naruto twitched slightly as he heard soft footsteps approaching him from behind and the tapping of the rain on an umbrella. Closing his eyes, he focused to see who was behind him, but almost immediately relaxed. Naruto fully let his guard down as the footsteps came closer until a blue umbrella shielded him in a poor attempt to keep his already soaked body dry. Hinata said nothing as she stepped into his view, a worried look in her eyes as their gazes met. The Hyuga heiress looked away for a moment before pulling a cloth out of her pocket. Wordlessly, she raised her hand, and without flinching Naruto closed his eyes, letting her wipe the rain and tears off his face. Once finished, Hinata placed the cloth back in her pocket and with her free hand reached forward to grab his own. She started to lead him back towards the village, but he remained rooted to the spot. When Hinata gave him a questioning look, with eyes downcast, Naruto shook his head, not wanting to return yet. The thunder rumbled loudly above before a crack of lightning shot through the air, but neither ninja jumped nor flinched from the loud sound. Silently, Hinata folded her umbrella and let it hit the wet, cold ground. The rain quickly soaked her dark midnight hair as she took the few steps towards Naruto. The blonde ninja barely moved when Hinata reached forward, sliding her arms under his and pulling him into a hug. His arms hung motionless at his sides, eyes narrowing slightly as he stared at the top of her head, unsure of how to react to this contact. No one had ever hugged him before like this. Was it to comfort him? Out of pity? Before he could think more on the situation, her soft voice reached his ears. "It's painful, isn't it?" whispered Hinata, her cheek resting on his chest. "When someone you love changes into someone you no longer know." That's right. The Sasuke that Sakura and I once knew. Before my mother died, my father wasn't as strict and harsh as he was a few years ago. He was always disappointed in my skills, but when she passed away on a mission, he changed. He became much colder, wanting to get revenge on those who had taken her away, becoming angry and strict with those around him. No words left Naruto. All he could do was listen to hers. Even after he got revenge on those who had taken her away, nothing changed. Revenge won't change what has already happened. Tears began to leak out of Naruto's eyes once again. Even after defeating Pain, knowing he had been the victor and saved Konoha, it still didn't change the fact that the village was destroyed or that Jiraiya was gone. When we lose someone important, we are surrounded by pain and loneliness. We want it to go away by filling our thoughts with revenge, thinking that it will make it go away and will suffer others like we have. Naruto started to shake. But, I never once held a grudge towards the one that took my mother away. He stopped moving altogether, the tears halting instantly. Questions were forming on his tongue, but he could not find the words to voice them. I was angry at the ninja that had killed her. However, my mother was simply doing her duty, and he was doing his. I had to try and understand why he did what he did. But that's so hard to do, croaked Naruto, his hands clenching into fists. He tried to come to terms with why Pain did what he did. It was his term of justice and peace, his village destroyed and parents killed by Konoha ninjas. Now that his village was destroyed and he felt the loss of loved ones, could he understand Pain's actions now? Yes, it is. Anger and hate are feelings easily brought on. But it is kindness and understanding that is hard to find. You told me once that Jiraiya-sama wanted there to be a time when people could truly come to understand each other and that your father believed you would find the answer. Slowly his hands unclenched. Memories of his fallen master and of the father he never really knew flooded his mind. Yes, they did. To truly understand someone, you have to let go of your hatred towards them and forgive them. Naruto's hands suddenly flew up, crushing Hinata against his chest while burying his face in her shoulder. I can't. I could never. I could never forgive Pain for what he did to Jiraiya, to the village, his voice becoming barely a whisper. What he did to you. Unforgivable. Hinata closed her eyes, not even blushing at the close contact as she embraced him tighter. What Pain did was to purposely hurt others and make them suffer. After finding out you weren't in the village, he could have just left and let the village be. However, to create pain for others, he destroyed the village. His eyes clenched shut, pulling Hinata closer to him as the tears returned to his eyes, sobs racking his body. Forgiving others for their actions is hard. It's very hard. And hating is so much easier because we shift the blame and pain to someone else. How? I don't know. How we can ever come to understand one another. I. I really don't know either, Naruto-kun. It will be very hard, but I believe that you can do it, and I believe you will be able to change Sasuke-kun too. Naruto stiffened. You have no idea how much you changed Niji with your words. He no longer hates the main family, my father, or me. He actually smiles now, and because of that my father has started to return to his old self again. He no longer disowns me or calls me a failure and now believes in me. The hatred in the Hyuga house is slowly. Her hands clenched the back of his jacket, tears lightly rolling down her cheeks. Someone who was so full of hate and revenge for his father was changed by you, Naruto-kun. So I have no doubt in my mind that with your words you will be able to help Sasuke-kun and change him back to the person he once was. Naruto's eyes snapped open, a warm feeling washing over him as he remembered his promise to Sakura. It's okay, Sakura-chan, I'll bring Sasuke back for sure. That's a promise of a lifetime. If possible, the depression he had felt earlier was now lifted from his heart, and the determination to bring Sasuke back to the village renewed. His arms pulled Hinata closer to him, tears flowing from his eyes, but no longer from the frustration and pain he had felt earlier. How is it that you, Hinata, always sniff? Thank you. Hinata smiled softly, tears still falling from her eyes. I have faith in you, Naruto-kun. The two continued to stand there, both just concentrating on the warm feeling of embracing one another. Naruto's thoughts slightly drifted over to his feelings for Sakura, wandering back to when he had made her that promise of a lifetime. He had always realized her feelings for Sasuke, feelings that she still had today, and feelings that he had forgotten she had, hoping they would shift to him instead someday. It slightly hurt to finally come to terms that the person you wished would look your way and yearned for would like you back, that the person would never have those kinds of feelings for you. Yes, it did hurt, but I have Hinata here, and maybe someday. As if on cue, the rain lessened into a light shower, and the thunder and lightning faded into the distance. His gaze shifted down, taking in the image of Hinata and him embracing each other. He liked this feeling. He liked being held by her. Her body trembled slightly from being soaked by the rain, but she refused to let go him, holding him to let him know she understood his pain and would gladly take some of the weight off his shoulders. Was this what you do when you love someone? To always be there for them? To listen to their pain? To comfort them? Hinata did all of these things without a second thought, did them for him. A light blush crept to his cheeks as he let his hands caress her small back. She was much smaller than him, and having his arms wrapped around her, he felt so right. Thanks, Hinata. I feel a lot better now, he whispered into her ear. You're welcome, Naruto-kun. I'm glad I was able to help, she whispered back. Smiling softly, Naruto was about to slowly pull out of Hinata's embrace so he could properly look at her, but stopped when he felt something warm and soft against his whiskered cheek. The contact didn't last for long, only a second as Hinata had pecked a light kiss on his right side. She pulled away, her eyes downcast and a blush covering her entire face. Jay, just try not to get down on yourself and be the same old Naruto-kun that everyone else loves. He felt Hinata's arms leave his waist, and the first thing he did was raise his hand to his cheek. Still feeling the warmth left behind from her lips, his eyes wide with surprise. We should get back to village. We are kind of soaked, whispered Hinata, still unable to look him in the eye. Naruto nodded softly, kneeling down to pick up the umbrella but leaving it closed. Hinata started to take a step towards the village but stopped when she felt Naruto's calloused hand wrap around her smaller one, a big grin on his face. You know, I haven't seen you for about 3 days. How about after we get changed into some dry clothes, we go get some ramen? Hinata smiled, glad to see that the life was restored in Naruto's eyes instead of the soulless look they had moments ago when she found him in the rain. I would really like that, Naruto-kun. I'm sorry I haven't been around lately, but I've been helping my family. explained Hinata, a blush still tinting her cheeks from her previous actions. Naruto smirked and let out a sigh of contentment as they made their way to the village. Nah, Hinata-chan, is it okay if I keep holding your hand? Even in front of everyone. The blush increased tenfold from his suggestion and also the fact that he called her Hinata-chan. She was afraid that she would faint on the spot. Holding her ground, Hinata managed to stutter, yes. I would. LL like that, Naruto-kun. Somehow through that little ordeal, she had managed to keep her gaze locked with his. But her eyes widened as he brought their combined hands up to his lips, kissing the back of hers. Great. Hinata took deep breaths, trying to control her hammering heart. Naruto simply chuckled as he watched her, his hands slightly tightening around hers. Did I ever tell you the time I gave my first kiss away? Although I'm told it doesn't count with another guy. What? How did that happen, Naruto-kun? Naruto smirked, breaking into the story what had happened between him and Sasuke. Then Sakura, almost beating him half to death. Hinata giggled as they continued to reminisce about the past. Painful tears rolled down her cheeks, her body racking with sobs, her eyes watching the blonde ninja walking away hand in hand with Hinata. They became smaller and smaller in her line of vision. Her chest tightened at the loss of something she never knew was there. It was ironic how true the saying was, you don't realize how precious something is until it's gone. And now it really was gone. Watching Hinata kiss Naruto on the cheek had been hard enough, but seeing the soft look he gave her and then kissing the back of her hand had been too much. She didn't want to watch anymore, and yet she couldn't keep her eyes off of him. Never again would he ask her out on a date. Never again would he blush when she sat close to him. Never again would he think of her that way. She cried out her emotions, knowing that no one would hear her as she slumped against the tree behind her. Tears blurred her vision as she raised her hand. Come back, Naruto. Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't realize it before. Come back. After he had returned from his training with Jiraiya, she was once again confronted with her feelings for Naruto. When Shio from the Sand Village had said that removing the tailed beasts from the Jinchuriki would kill them, her whole world had begun to crumble. The thought of Naruto dying shook her to the very core. Again, she was confronted when seeing him transformed into the Kyuubi with four tails. She had been scared, very scared of losing the Naruto she knew and cared for to the tailed beast sealed inside of him. Never again did she want to see him transform into that horrible creature. But he had transformed again, and now she had found out the truth as to why he had. Eavesdropping one day on her way to see her master, Niji had reported to Tsunade to tell her what exactly had transpired when Hinata had jumped in to save Naruto. Hinata had confessed to Naruto and attacked Pain, and upon seeing her cut down Naruto had immediately transformed. Jealousy shook through her entire body at the thought. Even knowing of Hinata's crush for Naruto, she never would have guessed in a million years that the Hyuga heiress would gather enough courage to confess. Nor did she ever imagine Naruto returning those feelings to Hinata. Now the two were seen on a daily basis together, talking, walking, side by side, though not showing any public display of affection until now, holding hands. She knew that Naruto would take things slow with this new development and not want to rush into this since it would be all so new to him. Not to mention the mess with Akatsuki and Sasuke still loomed over him. Sakura. The pink-haired Kunoichi looked up, not even startled to see Sai standing before her. Sometimes, her teammate could appear and disappear on a whim without anyone noticing his presence. His face was emotionless as ever, but there was now a change in his eyes which showed a note of concern for her. He held an umbrella in his left hand while he extended his right to her. Are you alright? Yamato Taishu was getting worried about you and Naruto. But I saw Naruto walking with Hinata back towards the village, so I came looking for you. Sakura sighed softly, taking his hand to pull herself up. Thanks, Sai. Sai nodded. Shall we head back? It's almost supper time, and Tsunade would like to talk to you before she leaves for the Land of Iron. Sakura followed after Sai, staying close so she would be under the umbrella. The sketchbook undersized left arm caught her attention. Were you out sketching the landscape? Sai nodded, a smile appearing on his face. Yes, I was, actually. But then Naruto and Hinata caught my attention. They were acting in a way I had never seen before, so I sketched a few pages so I could look them up later to see what it means. Sakura almost stopped but snapped out of her stupor before continuing on. And may I have a look? Passing her the sketchbook, Sakura flipped through the first few pages. Her eyes recognized most of the scenery drawn from around them, and he had even done an excellent sketch of the thundering sky. What made the tears reappear in her eyes were the sketches of Naruto and Hinata hugging each other, Hinata kissing his cheek, and finally Naruto kissing the back of her hand. I've never seen Naruto act like this before, not even around you, Sakura. I was hoping Kakashi-sensei or Yamato Taishu would be able to. Hey, Sakura. She released the sketchbook from her hands, running as hard as she could towards the village. Sai just barely caught the book before it could hit the cold ground, a confused look on his face as he looked down at his sketches. He could not understand at all why Sakura was so upset. All right, Sakura, spill it, hissed Ino, nudging her friend back to reality. Well, what? Asked Sakura, clutching her side. You've been spacing out constantly for the past 3 months, barely eating at times, and half the time you look like you're going to cry. What the heck is going on? Sakura sighed, pulling the white sheet that she was washing out of the river and hanging it on the clothesline. Well? Asked Ino, sounding more aggravated than before. It's nothing really. I've just had a lot on my mind, that's all. You know, with Sasuke and... Liar. Both you and Naruto looked like you lost your souls there for a few days, but he seems to be fine and dandy. Ino sighed softly. I thought we were friends, Sakura. You know you can tell me anything, right? Sakura was about to respond, but movement in the distance caught her attention. A group from the Hyuga clan was making their way back on what appeared to be a very successful hunting trip. Looks like deer meat is on the menu for tonight for the Hyuga clan. She stiffened slightly as she caught sight of Hinata, who was in a deep conversation with her cousin. Ino noticed immediately, her eyes darting back and forth between Hinata and Sakura. What the heck had the Hyuga heiress done to make Sakura look so rigid? Suddenly, it came to her. Are you jealous of Hinata? Sakura spun around so fast, she almost knocked down the sheet she had just cleaned. What? Oh, come on, Ino. That's silly. But the look in Sakura's eyes could not fool Ino. Sighing, she finished washing her sheet, hung it up on the line, and grabbed Sakura by the hand. We are going to talk now. Tsunade smiled as she watched the Hyugas deposit the 5 deer bodies into the food tent to be butchered for tonight's meal. Good work, all of you. It was nothing, Hokage-sama. Quite the easy hunt for us, commented Ko. You are all dismissed for today. Tomorrow the supplies will arrive, and you can start building the Hyuga estate, announced Tsunade. Finally, we can start the actual rebuilding of the village. The past 3 months had been mostly clean up, taking down of the outer wall that had surrounded Konoha, and trying to come up with the architectural plan. Now that everything was in order, it was time to actually start building. Bowing to the Hokage, all the Hyuga turned to take leave. Oh, Hinata, can you come here for a second? Smiled Tsunade, watching the Hyuga heiress turn around with a curious look on her face. Yes, Hokage-sama. Still smiling, Tsunade leaned forward to whisper in Hinata's ear. He will be back tonight from his mission. A soft blush touched her cheeks along with a smile. Thanks, Hokage-sama. Tsunade nodded, laughing softly as Hinata caught up with her clan and almost ran into Niji. Sighing softly, she returned to her office, which was currently one of the larger tents in the area. Kakashi was already in there waiting for her. Feeling like your old self again? The ninja nodded. But making me not take any missions for 2 months was a little over the top, Tsunade-sama. Nonsense. I haven't been accepting a lot of missions since we need everyone here to help with the village. Not to mention, I figured you needed a well-deserved break, and we still need some reliable ninjas in case we are attacked. I understand. So then I take it the ones on missions right now will be back soon. Yes, with all the lumber we have collected and the supplies coming in from the sand village, we can finally start rebuilding. So, why is it that you wish to speak with me, Tsunade-sama? In all honesty, it's based on a personal issue. Kakashi tilted his head to the side, perplexed. Pardon. It's about Sakura. She's been acting stranger than usual, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on with her. Not concentrating on her work, constantly making mistakes, and most of the time in her own little world. Even with her as my apprentice, I've never seen her like this, so I figured since you were her team leader, maybe you would have some idea. The copy ninja stared at the Hokage, wondering if she was actually being serious or pulling his leg. He had also noticed Sakura's strange behavior, but for him to be asked the reason behind it. No, Tsunade-sama, I do not know what is wrong with her. Tsunade sighed softly. Well, I'm hoping she snaps out of it soon. A good distance away from the village and high up in one of the tallest trees, Ino decided this was as good a place as any for a private conversation. She was determined to find out what was wrong with Sakura, even if it meant beating it out of her best friend. Minutes passed, and Sakura still remained silent with her eyes finding the branch beneath her very interesting. Sighing softly, Ino tried to at least get the conversation going. You know, I'm a bit jealous of Hinata too. Why you are? Asked Sakura. I mean, come on. Out of all the kunoichi, her curves are to die for. I swear, I think there's some secret in the Hyuga family for having a nice chest, because Hanabi also. Sakura frowned and once again went back to staring at the branch. Ino sighed in frustration. Okay, that's not why you're upset. But come on, Sakura. You've got to snap out of it. It's been close to 3 months since you've been acting all mopey. I mean, if I didn't know better, I'd say you were jealous of Hinata for going out with Naruto. She was met with silence, and it shocked her. Ino had been expecting Sakura to go into denial and call her crazy for thinking that she would be jealous of Hinata for that. Hell, she had been half joking when she said it, hoping to get a rise out of her. But Sakura's silence confirmed what she had just jested. Whoa, wait. Sakura, are you serious? She sat down right beside her friend, placing a hand Sakura's shoulder. If I tell you the truth, will you promise not to tell anyone else? Of course I will, Sakura. I promise I won't tell anyone. Sakura laughed softly. You sure you can keep that promise? Usually you're the one spreading all the gossip around the village. Only if it's an important topic, though. I mean, come on. You got to admit that Naruto finally dating someone is big enough news to get written in the paper, and Ino immediately shut her mouth. Another sigh left her lips, and Sakura clasped her hands in front of her. I never thought of him as more than a friend, maybe even like the brother I never had. But this, I never even thought about it until I saw him and Hinata. Ino shifted closer, wrapping an arm around Sakura's shoulders for support. Are you sure you're not just jealous of him being with somebody? I mean, maybe it's not him that you actually like. What do you mean? Well, for the longest time, all of his attention was focused on you. Even if it did annoy you, deep down I'm sure you liked him always asking you out. You liked the attention you were getting from him, but now, you see him with Hinata, you see the way he looks at her, and you wish that was the way someone would look at you. Sakura shook her head. I've already taken that into consideration, but it's more than that. Ino's eyes widened. Wait, so does that mean you're really? Yeah. I was mostly trying to catch Sasuke's attention, but over these past few years with him gone, Naruto, he grew on me, sort of snuck into my heart without even noticing. They were silent for a moment, both watching the sun slowly starting to set in the distance. Ino finally interrupted the silence. So, what do you plan to do? I really don't know. Well, I think you should tell him. What? I can't possibly do that. Naruto and Hinata are together. Ino smiled and pulled her friend closer. Of course you can. I mean, they are only dating right now. Nothing serious is going on between them. What if he really does have feelings for you? Maybe they are stronger than his feelings are for Hinata? Ino, I simply can't. And why not? You'll never know if you don't tell him. If he does reject you, though, then you'll know it's something that wasn't meant to happen between you two. Then you can move on instead of staying where you are at right now. You can't keep thinking of what-if situations or what could have been because it's getting you nowhere, Sakura. So you either need to step up and confront him or step down and move on. You can't just stay stuck in the middle. Can I really do that? Could I really ask him if he likes me back? But Ino is right. I can't stay like this forever. I've got to get a frickin' grip. Geez, I'm surprised Tsunade hasn't hit me one upside the head yet. He is coming back tonight from a mission with Sai and Yamato-sensei. You should corner him after he reports to Tsunade, suggested Ino. I'll think about, replied Sakura. As they watched the sun finally set, Sakura somehow felt better than she had in a long time. So no troubles then? Asked Tsunade. Nope, easy as pie, smirked Naruto. Sai and Yamato nodded in agreement as they passed her their reports. Good to hear. I'm sure by now you've heard of what's going to be happening over the next few weeks. Finally, we can actually start rebuilding Konoha. I got to say sleeping in a tent isn't. Would you rather be sleeping on the cold ground with no shelter, Naruto? Questioned Tsunade. Or perhaps you would like to stay in the hospital with the rest of the patients? Seeing Tsunade crack her knuckles, Naruto shut up immediately. You are all dismissed. The three ninja left without another word. Idiot, mumbled Tsunade but soon smiled. If he ever becomes Hokage, it could mean our doom. Outside, Naruto and his team went their separate ways. Being away for a week, he suddenly had a huge craving for ramen, and he knew exactly who he wanted to join him. Moments later, he found himself outside of the area where the Hyuga clan had pitched their humongous tents. It surprised him how much Hinata's father never really said anything about him and her actually spending more time together, but sometimes he would catch a glare from the head. Of course, I can't count the last time I brought her home. Thought I was dead there for a moment. If anybody, Niji had been the best sport out of them all, but, of course, he did get the one death threat that if he ever hurt Hinata, his body would never be found. Naruto. Naruto jumped slightly from hearing his name being called and turned around to find himself almost nose to nose with Sakura. Whoa! Sakura gasped as he jumped away from her and ended up hitting the back of his head on a low branch, falling to the ground. Naruto, are you okay? Asked Sakura. Ow. Mumbled Naruto, rubbing the back of his head while his face was buried in the grass. Yeah, Sakura-chan, I'm okay. What are you doing here? Sakura winced and tried to come up with an answer. Not that I'm not glad to see you or anything, but I've never seen you around this area before. You looking for Hinata or Niji? Sakura started to fiddle around with her hands. No, actually, I was looking for you. Naruto stopped rubbing the back of his head and jumped to his feet. Looking for me? Is something wrong? Come to think of it, you have been acting strange for a while now. Want to tell me what's going on? I'm all ears. I'd like that, Naruto. Do you want to talk it over ramen? I was going to ask Hinata, but if you want to we can go instead, and I can meet up with her later. Sakura blushed. Actually, I was thinking if we could go somewhere private alone. That bad, huh? Alright, where do you want to go? Smiling, Sakura grabbed his hand, and without saying a word lead him off deeper into the forest. Her cheeks reddened at the thought of holding his hand, but there was still a slight sting at the fact he wasn't holding hers back. As the two disappeared into the trees, Niji stepped out of his hiding place. His eyes locked onto where they had disappeared. I wonder what Sakura's up to. Yo, Niji. The Hyuga turned around to see Kiba and Shino walking towards him. Good evening. Kiba's smile turned into a frown as his eyes turned in the direction where Naruto and Sakura had gone off into the forest. So what's going on? I don't know yet, but I'm certainly going to find out. I know you don't really trust Naruto that much when it comes to him being closer with our teammate, but you need to relax a little. I don't think Naruto's the one he's worried about, commented Shino. I know what she plans to do, sighed Niji, starting to follow after them. What? You're going to spy on them? Asked Kiba, rather stunned. Spy? Really, you think I would sink so low and do something like that? I'm just merely going to observe. Laughing softly, Kiba followed after him. Well then, allow me to help you observe as well. Shino didn't say anything. Instead, he continued on his way into the Hyuga area to find Hinata. Thanks for distracting Hinata for us, Shino, called Kiba, waving at his teammate. You could keep your voice down just a little, whispered Niji, picking up the pace a bit after activating his Byakugan. The two ninja jumped from tree to tree, using all of their stealth techniques so they would not be noticed. So what's the deal with Sakura anyway? She's been acting strange since Dash. Since Hinata and Naruto started seeing more of each other, I'm sure you can piece together what that means, Niji whispered. But that's ridiculous. He's been asking her out since we were Jinin, and she's always found him so annoying. Even after he returned from his training, You ever heard of the saying, you don't realize how precious something is until it's taken away? Kiba was silent for a moment. So what? Naruto starts paying attention to Hinata, and Sakura realizes she actually likes him that way. Exactly. A soft growl escaped his throat, and she plans to tell Naruto she likes him then. You got another reason she's dragging him off into the forest alone? Well, how do you think Naruto's going to react? If he lets Hinata go to be with Sakura, I'll beat his ass, then beat him some more until Dash. You will do no such thing, hissed Niji. With your temper, you'll leave evidence. If I do it, no one would ever know. Kiba tried to keep his laugh quiet. Protective of your little cousin, huh? That's a nice change. Niji finally came to a halt and leapt into the nearest tree, quickly followed by Kiba. Close enough now. I'll watch them. Can you hear what they are saying? Closing his eyes, Kiba listened. Concentrating, he blocked out all other sounds and finally heard Sakura's voice. So your mission went well then? It was fairly easy, just had to deliver a scroll, said Naruto, taking a seat on the rock next to him. So what's on your mind? Everyone's been worried about you. At first, we thought you were sick or something. Does this have to do with Sasuke? Sakura's face fell slightly, her eyes drifting down to the ground. No, you see it has to do with something that happened. Sorry, Sakura-chan, can you speak up? Her mouth opened, but still he couldn't hear anything. Frowning, he stood up and walked towards her. Sakura-chan, if you don't speak up then I can't hear Dash. Sakura's head lifted up, and the look that she gave him made Naruto stop in his tracks, his eyes widening with shock. A soft pink blush covered her cheeks and her eyes. The only way he could best describe them was that they were identical to the way Hinata always looked at him. Before he could say a word, Sakura took a step closer to him, placing her hands on his shoulders and closing her eyes as she leaned up to kiss him. His lips are so close to mine, so close I can feel his breath against mine. Naruto suddenly grabbed Sakura by the waist and pushed her away. Their lips had only been a centimeter apart. She stumbled backwards, almost tripping over her own feet. Naruto backed away so that there was some distance between them, his mind racing, trying to sort through what had almost just happened. Kiba had been ready to pounce, but Niji held him back. He stopped her, don't worry. Sakura looked back up at Naruto, who looked pale as ghost, scared and confused. Almost as if she were to take a step forward, he would run away. Tears pooled in her eyes, head dropping down as her hands came up and clenched against her chest. Sakura-chan. I am sorry, Naruto, she cried out. I wanted to tell you that I. Naruto didn't move, his eyes widening even further if that was possible. I I like you, Naruto. I really do like you. His face became even paler, and if Niji didn't know any better, he was afraid the blonde ninja was going to pass out. You know, I think it's safe to go now, Niji. I really don't think Naruto will. Quiet. Sakura tried to gather her thoughts. I never noticed until that night at the hospital when you and Hinata were talking in the tree, and that got Naruto's attention. Wait, what? How did you know about that? No one was. No, wait. The window wasn't fully opened when I took Hinata back into the hospital, but it was when I brought her into her room. Realization dawned on his face. She had been watching them, spying on him. I'm sorry. I went to check on Hinata, and she was gone. I was about to go look for her, but then I heard voices outside. I saw the two of you, and I just couldn't pull myself away. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. Sakura-chan. And then 2 weeks later, I saw the two of you again together. You and I, we were both so miserable about hearing what had happened to Sasuke, and I couldn't find anything to say or do to cheer you up. But then Hinata came along, and you started smiling again and were your old self. Naruto could no longer look her straight in the eye, his eyes shifting to the ground. You've been spying on me? Sakura shook her head. Not intentionally. I've just happened to stumble upon you two a few times, but instead of walking away like a normal person would. She really started to cry now, her body racking with sobs. I'm so sorry, Naruto. You constantly asked me out ever since we were kids, and I never really noticed you until you promised to bring Sasuke back. After that, I slowly started to like you more than just a teammate, more than a friend, and you got under my skin without me knowing it. Naruto didn't say anything, so she continued. I know that you're seeing Hinata, but I had to tell you. Ino finally brought me to my senses that I should let my feelings out. Wiping the tears with the back of her hand, she started walking towards Naruto. He didn't run from her, but his eyes remained on the ground. I like you, Naruto. I really do. The Jinchuriki didn't even move or react when Sakura wrapped her arms around him, resting her cheek against his chest. Sakura waited and waited for him to say something, anything, but she heard nothing. Please, say something, Naruto. Please tell me what you're thinking. Naruto still didn't say a word as he took a step back, gently putting his hands on Sakura's shoulders and pushing her away. Sakura looked up, but he wouldn't meet her gaze. His hands remaining on her shoulders, he took in a deep breath before speaking. I liked you back then, because both of us wanted to be acknowledged by others. You wanted to be noticed by Sasuke, and I wanted to be recognized by you and everyone in the village, but especially you. He spoke barely above a whisper, so Sakura didn't dare interrupt or make a sound and just listened to his words. The sorrow in his voice made her heart break as she was the main cause behind it. You were so pretty and talented, and I wanted you to acknowledge me so much that it hurt. I tried to cover it up by acting cool and tough all the time, but deep down it hurt so much sometimes it was unbearable. Tears once again pooled in her eyes, and she could see that tears threatened to overtake his eyes as well. When we were placed on the same team, I was so happy. For a full 5 seconds, I was the happiest guy in the world. But then Irika-sensei announced that Sasuke would be with us as well. I knew you loved him and that I was just simply an annoyance to you. But I kept trying to win your heart. Heh, you know me. I never like to give up. Sakura couldn't even make a small laugh at his joke, not while tears were pouring down his face. Have I really hurt him like this? This pain in my chest. Is that what he felt every time I called Sasuke-kun and looked at Sasuke-kun rather than him? Unbeknownst to me, there was someone who did acknowledge me. She really wanted to be my friend and play with me, but was too shy to approach me. I always thought of her as weird, plain, and dark, could never figure her out. I never realized how she acted around me. Was almost the same way you acted around Sasuke. Niji closed his eyes and deactivated his Byakugan. I think it's safe to go now. Naruto's a level-headed guy and is doing the right thing. Oh sure, now you say that, mumbled Kiba under his breath. The two ninjas left silently, giving their friends a private moment which they could only assume would involve more tears. I always acted tough around you and never dropping my guard. Even though you were my teammate, someone I wanted to get to know me better. But the first person I actually really let my guard down in front of was her. Sakura flinched slightly and started to clue in on where this was going. So he no longer has feelings for me? I was too late. Both of us. We were called losers and failures and always wanted to prove others wrong that we could change. So we always got up to try again. Naruto. Even though we were the same, I saw right through her and always looking your way, waiting for you to notice me. You and I got closer through missions and the Chunin exam, and I was so happy when you cheered for me against Kiba. I knew, deep down, that you would never see me that way. And that your heart would always belong to Sasuke. I knew that when I made you that promise, and I still intend to keep it. I will bring Sasuke back. Naruto, Even after I got back from training with Erosenin for 3 years, I thought maybe you had gotten over Sasuke and would look my way, but you didn't. Deep down, I still yearned for you. But when Pain attacked the village and Hinata came charging in like that. Naruto, please, whispered Sakura, trying to wipe the tears from her eyes. I inspired her. My smile saved her and changed who she was. She was the first person to ever say, I love you to me. Hinata and I have. He paused for a minute, releasing one hand on her shoulder to wipe his eyes. I've been so happy with her, the happiest I've been in a long time. The last time I remember being this happy is when I finally became a ninja. Sakura, I have to admit that deep down a part of me is just jumping for joy since I finally know that you really do like me back. But his eyes closed. It seemed like almost yesterday as he remembered what had transpired between Hinata and him before he left. His heart was racing so fast, it almost felt like it was going to burst out of his chest. His hands trembled slightly as they rested against Hinata's hips, while one of hers was resting lightly on his shoulder and the other softly caressing his cheek. It's not a dangerous mission, right? Asked Hinata. Her eyes shifted from following her fingers to look into his blue eyes. Naruto shook his head. No, it's really simple. We just have to deliver a scroll, but Tsunade-bachan is being extra cautious and adding more people to the mission just to be safe. Makes sense. Naruto let out the breath that he didn't know he was holding, not sure what to do when they were close like this. Sure, they had been holding hands and even pecking each other on the cheek when saying goodnight, but what came after that? In all honesty, he didn't know. Silently, he cursed himself for not paying more attention to his sensei's books. Maybe they could have prepared him for this. What had started out as a simple walk in the forest and holding hands had come to him, now leaning against a tree and Hinata very much in his personal space. Her eyes remained on his, until they slightly moved down to his lips. He felt a shiver run up his body as Hinata leaned closer to him. Naruto-kun, she whispered softly. Her eyes closed, and her lips came closer to his. Is she really going to? His heart was beating faster than before, and he suddenly forgot how to breathe, but then, do you want me to stop? With every word she whispered, he could feel her breath against his skin, causing another shiver to run down his spine, which caused his eyes to close halfway. Forgetting to actually think, Naruto closed the gap between them. It was something he had never experienced before, except the one time with Sasuke, but he had been so disgusted by it and tried to banish the thought from his mind. Hinata's lips were soft, warm, wet, and felt amazing against his own. He could feel her breathing through her nose and the caresses her hand made against his cheek. She looked so peaceful with her eyes closed and the light blush on her cheeks. Over the past 3 months, her blushes had lessened around him. The contact ended all too soon as Hinata slightly pulled away, eyes opening halfway to look into his. Fingers that had been caressing his cheek trailed down to move across his lips, and she could feel his hot breath against the tips. Both of them were breathing fast, pondering about the new step they had just taken. Naruto realized that he wanted it again. He wanted to feel her lips on his again. Hinata. he whispered. Hands that had remained on her hips moved up to her back, pulling her to him. Her own hands moved away from his face and onto his chest, and she could feel his heart pounding against her fingertips. The blush on her cheeks increased in color as she once again closed her eyes. He kept his open. Again, the mysterious shiver returned to his body as their lips reconnected. His eyes remained half closed, wanting to see her peaceful face as they kissed, but also wanting to make sure that this was real, that he was really kissing her. Just when he was getting used to the feeling of their lips pressed together, he gasped when Hinata's lips moved against his own, caressing them. Another shiver ran over his entire body, and he liked it. He liked that feeling and wanted more. Hearing his gasp, Hinata pulled away again, her eyes not able to meet his as she stuttered, "I really don't know what I'm doing." Naruto laughed softly. "Neither do I, but I do know one thing." The blush increased on her cheeks from the hooded look he was giving her and the slight huskiness that had taken over his voice. Leaning forward so that his back was no longer against the tree, and with quick maneuvering, he switched their positions. "I don't want to stop," he whispered, hands braced against the tree as he leaned into her. A small gasp escaped her lips before they were covered by his again. The night passed on, but time seemed to stand still for them as they experimented and enjoyed this new contact. He would never forget the small whimpers that she had made when his hands caressed her neck, or the way he could feel and hear her heart pounding as fast as his, knowing he was the only one that made her feel this way. It was burned into Hinata's mind when her fingers had found their way into his blonde spikes. The way his body had shivered and the sound that had escaped his lips made her shiver with delight. They continued kissing throughout the night until it hurt to do so, both of their lips red and puffy from the continuous contact. Naruto kept his head buried against her neck, shifting to breathe in the smell of her hair while her hands traced circles on his back. No words were spoken between the two, but nothing needed to be said. They were content with just listening to the sounds of the night, the other's heartbeats, and the slowing down sound of their breathing. Never before had he felt this way before, this feeling of contentment and acceptance, feeling wanted and needed. "I never want this feeling to go. I've already had a taste of what it feels like, and to lose it now." All too soon, Naruto had to break the silence. "We should get back. Tsunade-bachan will be mad if she hears I slept in because I was out all night." Hinata nodded, knowing full well she didn't want to have an ill-tempered father to deal with. A/N. They were only kissing lip to lip. No making out, or anything dirty, so get your minds out of the gutter. Blue eyes reopened to meet Sakura's gaze. "What I feel for Hinata is more than what I ever felt for you, more than I will ever feel towards you." Sakura stepped back, her eyes leaving his and back to the safe zone of the ground. She could no longer look into his intense blue eyes, knowing that every word he had just said was the truth. "Sakura-chan." "It's okay, Naruto, really it is. I'm glad that you told me the truth. I'm sorry." She shook her head. "You have nothing to apologize for. I'm the one who." Turning around, she wiped the remaining tears from her eyes. Even though she felt crushed that she had lost Naruto, she also felt relieved as well for letting him know her feelings. Silence fell over them. He stared at her back, and she gazed up at the starry sky. "You should get going. I'm sure Hinata has been waiting to see." "I know, but, Sakura-chan, are you going to be?" Sakura whipped around to face him, a soft smile on her lips. "I'll be fine. I just really needed to get this off my chest, and now that I have, I feel much better." Naruto frowned slightly, knowing he was the cause of the pain behind her eyes. "I want to thank you for being completely honest with me." "Sakura-chan." "Go. I know you want to see her too." After a slight hesitation, Naruto started to head back. A soft, "I'm sorry," could be heard as he passed her before breaking into a run. Sakura turned as she watched his retreating back. Once again she was alone, but it was a different feeling from all the other times. Deep down, She was very happy for Naruto. He had found someone who had seen who he really was since they were young children. A few moments passed, and finally Sakura decided it was time to head back. Tomorrow would be a different day. Naruto raced back to where he had first run into Sakura, hoping that Hinata hadn't been waiting too long for him. His heart clenched slightly from the guilt he felt for telling Sakura the truth. Never had he ever expected that she had feelings for him. Perhaps had she confessed before the incident with pain. Shaking his head as hard as he could, the thought was banished from his mind. Naruto-kun. Looking ahead, he saw Hinata. She was standing on a low tree branch and waving at him to catch his attention. Breaking out into a great big grin, he leapt towards her. In one jump, he reached the branch she was on and couldn't help himself when he engulfed Hinata in a hug, lifting her up into the air and spinning. The grin grew face as he heard her giggling in his ear. "You missed me that much?" Naruto didn't say anything as he set her down, but kept his face buried against her neck. Shivers ran up Hinata's body as she felt his hot breath against her sensitive skin. Before she could say a word, his lips were against her neck, and she could only manage a gasp. The blonde ninja smiled at her reaction and noted a small apology to Erosenin when he had called his books boring and useless. During his mission, he had had some free time to do some reading of his master's books. Feeling her body slightly trembling and the way she was gripping the sides of his jacket, he couldn't help but feel male pride burning through his body. Pulling away, he pecked her on the forehead and released her from his embrace. Hinata's face was beet red, and he couldn't help the chuckle that escaped his throat. The previous event was washed from his mind, and all he could think about was the girl standing in front of him. "I don't know about you, but I'm starving." Hinata nodded. "Ramen." Laughing softly, Naruto collected her hand in his as they jumped down from the tree. "Do you even need to ask?" As they walked into the direction of Ichiraku's small temporary booth, a voice behind them stopped Naruto cold in his tracks. "If she's out late again like last time," called Niji, eyeing down the blonde ninja. Turning around slowly, Naruto looked into the eyes of Niji, Shino, and Kiba, who weren't exactly glaring at him, but it wasn't a friendly stare either. I know. Her father gave me a mouthful." "Oh, Hayashi-sama was quite generous the last time, but I will warn you if it happens again. Well, you have heard my threat before, and it still stands." Sweating bullets, Naruto bobbed his head up and down that he understood perfectly and turned to continue his way onto Ichiraku's with Hinata. The Hyuga heiress waved goodbye to her teammates and cousin before whispering to him, "Don't mind them. They're just acting like three big older brothers." "Yeah, and I certainly wouldn't want to take all three of them on at once, or your father for that matter." When they were out of visual and hearing range from their audience, Hinata turned and lightly kissed Naruto on the lips. "You shouldn't worry. I'll protect you from them." Naruto couldn't help but smirk as suddenly pushed Hinata against the nearest tree, his lips dominating hers. Hands came up to grasp her hips while her arms wrapped around his neck. When they pulled apart, he whispered, "But who's going to protect you from me?" Wanting to get even, Hinata grasped his shoulders and quickly spun him around, his back hitting the tree with a small thud. Instead of going for his lips, she returned the favor he had given her earlier. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt her lips against his neck, right above his pulse point. He almost didn't hear her whisper, "I think I can take care of myself." Laughing softly, the two pulled apart, and their hands intertwined again as they headed off to get ramen at Ichiraku's. Naruto couldn't help but feel joy and happiness whenever he was around Hinata. His heart always felt lighter, and the more they were together, the more he could feel the scars from his past slowly fade away. It was true when he had told Sakura this was the happiest he had ever felt, and he would do anything, everything within his power to make sure this feeling never disappeared. Hell, he would take pain on with one hand tied behind his back if it came down to it. "You never did finish telling me your stories from your training session with Jiraiya-sama." Oh, that's right. Let's see, where was I? Oh, yes. So while the women chased Ero Sennin out of the bathhouse, I was laughing so hard I could barely stand up. Naruto continued, waving his arms and adding action to his stories. Naruto stood outside of the newly built Hyuga compound, his fist raised to rap on the door. He stood there for a moment before sighing softly in defeat, lowering his hand back down to his side. Coward, you've avoided her long enough and made her cry. So grow some balls and knock already. Feeling the courage he had moments ago slowly slip away, Naruto turned and headed back to his apartment. 2 weeks. It had been 2 weeks since he had started avoiding Hinata, and all because of his own lack of confidence and stupidity. Shoulders sagged as he remembered what had caused this whole mess in the first place. He had finally been successful in bringing Sasuke back to Konoha, but only after beating the ever-loving crap out of the said Uchiha. Once Sasuke had been down for the count and unable to move, Naruto had tried to convince the Uchiha that revenge against the village was not the answer. However, after fighting for almost an entire day, it had been hard to speak. Sasuke, unfortunately, was unwilling to listen at the moment, screaming at Naruto that he had no idea how he felt about losing someone close to him. Bonds of love are something that you will never truly understand. No one could ever love you. You are a Jinchuriki host and are destined to be alone. They would find you disgusting and leave you behind. At first, Naruto had ignored Sasuke's words as he watched Kakashi sling the Uchiha over his shoulder, and Team 7, including Sai, made their way back to Konoha. On their journey back, Naruto did a lot of thinking about his relationship with Hinata. 5 months ago, he had experienced his first kiss with her, and ever since then that was as far as they had gotten. With the threat of Akatsuki and Sasuke over his head, neither of them wanted to go any further. Having said that though, Naruto was finding it extremely difficult to keep their relationship at a complete standstill. Never before had he felt this way about anyone, and wanted to explore it more. If kissing her felt so amazing, what would the next step feel like? All of that came to a screeching halt when he thought about Sasuke's words, and for a moment he wondered what he would do if Hinata all of a sudden decided he wasn't worthy enough of her and left. The thought made his heart clench and almost left him gasping for breath. Reality finally set in his mind. For over half a year, he had been living in a dream, always thinking that no matter what, Hinata would be in his life. However, with this reality check, he was almost left breathless. If Hinata left him now, it would hurt. It would hurt so much. And right now they were only dating. 2 months ago, they had finally admitted to everyone that they were officially dating. But if things got more serious between them, and then she left? Don't go there. Don't even think about it. Would he be able to stand it? In all common sense, Hinata could have anyone she wanted, so why him? Doubts and negativity soon flooded his mind. She was the heiress to the Hyuga clan, and he was a demon container. If anything, he would be nothing but a burden to her. Everyone's perspective of him over the years had changed drastically, and no longer were hateful words whispered between the villagers. Unfortunately, there were still some who saw him as nothing more than a monster. He could handle people hating him, but could he stand people hating Hinata as well for being with him? Would she even want to deal with it? Only now was she regaining respect in her own clan, but to be shunned by the villagers for just being his girlfriend. Now, 2 weeks after returning to the village, he avoided Hinata at all costs, coming up with every excuse in the book not to spend time with her or go have lunch at his favorite ramen booth. He was scared of the reality that one day she would no longer want to be with him. All of this, holding hands, hugging, kissing, was so new to him, and being able to finally experience what he had only once dreamed of, it went beyond his expectations. He had been so happy with Hinata by his side, so happy that he wasn't even living in reality. Now that he was aware of what could happen, he didn't want it anymore. The clenching feeling around his heart, the shaking in his hands, and the continuous lumps in his throat were bad enough. If their relationship went farther, how would he feel when she left? No, It was better to break things off now, so before she could leave him, he would leave her first. Every time he told Hinata he was busy with something or couldn't spend time with her, her expression broke his heart each time. But the reminder of this is better for everyone kept repeating itself in his head. And for the first time in a long time, the loneliness that he had felt back when he was a child returned like a tidal wave crashing on him. He kept telling himself that eventually the feeling would pass. Finally, yesterday evening, Hinata had cornered him and softly demanded to know what was going on. He could see the unshed tears glistening in her eyes. So, instead of avoiding the problem like he had been with another excuse not to talk to her, he told the truth. Hinata didn't say a word as he spoke, explaining why stopping things now was better for the both of them. After he finished, again he was met with silence. It hurt. His heart clenched as he watched the tears sliding down her cheeks and hitting the ground beneath her feet. Her hands tightened into fists, and her whole body shook. At first, he wanted to run to her and take all the words he had said back, but knew that he couldn't, his mind dead set that this was for the best. She too would eventually get over him. What did I do? Her soft-spoken words left him speechless for a moment, and his whole body froze when finally their gazes met. What did I do to make you think that I would ever leave you? Her words were broken up as her body racked with sobs. I love you, Naruto-kun. Before he could say anything, she took the few steps to close the gap between them with her lips crashing onto his. Her hands fisted in his orange and black jacket, not wanting to let him go, lips moving desperately against his. She wanted him to take back all the words he had just said to prove that never in a million years would she ever consider leaving. It hurt so much that he would even think such a thing. Finally breaking the kiss, but unable to look him in the eye, she rested her head on his chest. I've had a crush on you since we were children, and never have I thought. Naruto's eyes widened. Please don't go, Naruto-kun. She cried, gripping his clothes even tighter. He wasn't sure what to do. His mind was telling him that it was for the better. Logically speaking, it was for the best. But his heart was telling him the exact opposite. Was this truly for the best? Was he really being a fool here? Hinata, you bastard. Naruto turned his head just in time as a fist connected with his jaw, forcing Hinata to let go as he crashed into the ground. Kiba-kun. Hinata cried. Naruto groaned as he tried to sit up, watching as Kiba glared at him. The dog ninja's body tensed and muscles flexed, preparing for another attack at Naruto. And before Naruto could say another word to Hinata or yell at Kiba to stop, the Inuzuka came charging at him again, grabbing him off the ground and slamming him against a nearby tree. You avoid her for weeks, and now you make her cry? You're dead meat, growled Kiba, pulling his fist back to punch him in the face once more. With the force of Kiba's punch and the tree behind him, his world went black. When he had come to, he was alone in the forest with a bruise on his right cheek and a black eye. The sun was slowly beginning to rise, meaning he had been lying there most of the night. Slowly getting to his feet and dusting off his clothes, Naruto turned to head back to the village, but suddenly came nose to nose with Niji. You're finally awake? I was beginning to think Kiba had knocked you out for good. Luckily, I managed to convince him to escort Hinata-sama back home and that I would deal with you. Naruto jumped back, raising his arms in defense for another attack. Please, Niji, let me explain, I dash. Are you stupid? Niji asked calmly. What? Niji sighed and leaned against the tree closest to him. I'm wondering if you truly are that stupid to even think for 1 second that Hinata-sama would even consider dumping you. Niji glared at him with his cold white eyes, and Naruto had to look away from that penetrating gaze. Answer me. The only reason I'm here instead of Hayashi-sama is because he is currently out of the village. You should consider yourself lucky since I doubt he would have left you alive for making his daughter cry. If you thought Kiba's punches were hard from the stunt you pulled, You haven't seen anything compared to the head Hyuga when he is angry. Naruto's body started to shake at the thought. So tell me why you pulled such an idiotic move on my cousin. You wouldn't understand. Try me. The blonde ninja growled. Trust me, you don't know. Then, very softly, he mumbled. She could do better. Niji's eyes widened slightly at his whispered words. I see. So, if you don't mind. You feel as if things are getting out of control. Never before have you felt this way about someone, and the thought of them leaving you is so heartbreaking that you try to leave them before they can hurt you. Naruto's eyes shot up from the ground, staring at Niji with his mouth wide open. Wake up, Uzumaki. Everyone who starts a relationship for the first time has felt like this, and you're not the only one. His hands clenched in anger. Not everyone has a demon sealed inside there. We all have our demons, barked Niji, silencing Naruto. Faults that we figure will eventually scare the person away. Before Naruto could react, Niji grabbed him by the front of his jacket, almost lifting him up into the air. You are afraid. You are a coward, fearing that Hinata-sama will suddenly see you as someone who is unworthy of her. Is that what you think? Well, you're dead wrong. I have known Hinata-sama most of my life, and I have never seen her this happy before. If she continues to stay by my side, then it will make her unhappy. I'm one of the Jinchuriki. Niji continued to glare at Naruto, his grip not lessening on his jacket. Let me tell you something I have told no one else, and the only reason I'm telling you is because I think it will get through to your thick, stupid skull. I know exactly how you feel because I tried to pull the same stunt. Naruto's eyes softened at that statement. Niji did the same thing? But who? So then, the rumors that you and Tintin. I'm from the branch house, and I once foolishly considered that that was a reason for her to leave me. If we were to continue down this path, it would leave nothing but hardships for her, or so I selfishly thought. However, unlike Hinata, Tintin, well, it was the reason I was stuck in the hospital for a few days. Naruto flinched at the thought of Tintin actually overtaking the Hyuga Jounin and putting him in the hospital. She was mad, very mad. I lost count how many times she called me stupid or an idiot. I had considered every logical reason for her to leave, and by all rights she should have. But tell me something, Naruto, when has love ever been logical? It is a human emotion that is unexplainable, so don't think that logic can answer it. Stop thinking of the negative things that could happen and concentrate on the positives like you always do. And before you say that you don't deserve to be loved, when has anyone gotten what they deserved? All one can do is reach for higher things and work hard to get to them. He could feel the anger building in him, his mouth running away. Your situation and mine are completely different. I've got a killer fox inside of me that could destroy this village in a second. And when has that ever mattered to her? She's known about the Kyuubi since childhood, and still she had such a horrible crush on you. Why would that change now? Naruto felt his anger slowly start to fade and memories played through his mind of her constant reminders to him that the Kyuubi did not affect her feelings for him. To her, he was Naruto and would always be just Naruto, even with a demon still sealed in him. Releasing the Kyuubi container, Niji regarded him for a second before turning to leave. Think about what I said, and give Hinata a moment to calm down before you talk to her. If you don't come tonight, Hiba and I will be hunting you down. After that, Naruto had found the tallest tree in the forest, and on its highest branch he sat there thinking about Niji's words. Pushing aside all of the negative thoughts that had plagued his mind during the past 2 weeks, he concentrated on the good ones. The feeling of someone waiting for him when he was gone. It was something he had longed for ever since childhood. Every time he came back from a mission now, Hinata was usually waiting for him with a smile on her face. The feeling he got from it was a deep longing and happy one that almost brought tears to his eyes. He had nearly cried the first time he had said to her, Tadaima, to which she responded with Okirinasai after a long, hard mission. Holding hands, embracing someone, Eskimo kisses, actual kissing. Never had he experienced any of these physical contacts before, and now that he didn't want them to disappear. In fact, he wanted more. Getting to know Hinata was the best thing that ever happened to him. Learning about her childhood, her likes and dislikes, favorite food, favorite jutsu. He loved learning about her, and he wanted to know more personal things about her. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he remembered the time she had said how much she liked his whiskered cheeks before kissing them. She truly did not care that the QB was inside him or that if it was unsealed he could kill her. He had wished for all of this his whole life and had wanted to throw it away because he got scared. Usually if you got scared in a fight, you would just train harder, stand up and fight again. But battles of the heart were played on a much different field, and being hurt on an emotional level cost more than a physical wound did. With time, physical wounds healed, but time did nothing for wounds of the heart. The risk of being hurt and left behind. Yes, they were scary, but the benefits that came when you were with someone were well worth the risk. I just have to work harder at this. Take on the challenges as if I were training normally instead of being a coward. By the time Naruto had come to the conclusion that he had been a complete idiot for what he did and had summoned up the courage to actually talk to Hinata, the sun had set, and once again it was nightfall. And so here he was, ready to knock on the Hyuga door and beg for Hinata to forgive him for being such an idiot. But upon facing his problem, his courage had fallen. Only after a few steps back towards his apartment did Naruto stop. What the hell am I doing? I can't just leave like this. For one thing, Neji and Kiba will kill me and hide my body if I don't. But more importantly, if I don't fix things with Hinata, now they may never be fixable. Smacking himself on the forehead, Naruto whipped right around, ran towards the Hyuga door, and knocked loudly 3 times. He could hear whispered voices on the other side, and the sound of bolts moving to unlock it. As the door opened, Naruto came face to face with Tenten. The weapons ninja regarded him with a solemn look, twirling a kunai on her right hand. How come all you guys are idiots? I've been trying to tell Hinata she should have just kicked your... That's enough. Tintin looked to her left before disappearing, and within a few seconds Neji had taken her place. Hinata-sama is currently in her room. I've taken the liberty of removing all servants from the house for a few hours so that no one will interrupt. Naruto blushed, but it quickly disappeared when Neji cracked his knuckles. By interrupt, I mean you telling Hinata-sama how much of an idiot you were, apologizing, and making it up to her. If you decide to do anything else that involves the removal of clothing, I'll cut off your head, and I don't mean the one above your shoulders. Pale as a ghost, Naruto nodded. Good, now follow me. Neji led Naruto down a series of different hallways that would be quite confusing to an outsider. However, Naruto had been to Hinata's room before when she had showed him pictures of her childhood. Telling Neji that he knew the way to Hinata's room would most likely lead to wrong conclusions and the removal of certain body parts. When Neji led Naruto past Hinata's room, a confused look came across his face but thought it better not to ask. Opening the shoji to his left, Naruto was led into a huge garden. She has moved from her room to here. Follow the stone path towards the pond, and you will find her, instructed Neji, deactivating his Byakugan. Thank you, whispered Naruto. My debt to you from when you helped me see that destiny can be changed is paid. We are now even. Naruto nodded before stepping down the stairs and started walking down the stone path. The Hyuga Jounin watched him for a moment before turning around to head back to his own guest. A soft gust of wind passed by, causing the trees to sway and the aroma of the nearby flowers past Naruto. Catching the smell of lilacs, he turned to see a tree full of them. He remembered that lilacs were the first flowers he had ever brought Hinata. Smiling softly and hoping Neji wouldn't kill him for this, he walked towards the tree. Hinata stared down at her reflection in the pond. She couldn't see herself clearly with the ripples her tears created. Crying for a full day had not lessened them at all. Instead, it only intensified as the day went on. Tintin had come by her room to cheer her up, trying to explain that boys were nothing but idiots. She even told her a similar story when Niji had tried to convince her with logical reasons why it wouldn't work between them with him being in the branch house. Hinata couldn't help but smile a little now that she knew the real reason her cousin had been in the hospital for a few days. Naruto just got cold feet isol, and it happens to everyone when things between them get serious. I heard from Sakura that Sasuke said some pretty mean things to Naruto when the two of them fought, something along the lines of him being a Jinchuuriki, and that no one could ever love him. He's just being an idiot right now, and you've got to knock some sense into him. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, Hinata attempted to wipe her tears away, but the memory of Naruto's words were still fresh in her mind. I don't think it's right for us to see each other anymore. You're the heir to the Hyuga clan, and I'm a demon container. It will never work between us. I know you've known about the Kyuubi for a long time, but I don't think you've considered all the hardships that could go along with it. So, before this gets any more serious between us and you decide to leave me, I think it's best that we break it off here. Tears once again started to roll down her cheeks. She had never thought of leaving Naruto. Never. The very thought of him disappearing and never to see him again was so painful to think about. It instantly made her heart clench. She had felt this pain before when Naruto had battled against the leader of Akatsuki and was almost taken away. The thought of Naruto disappearing from her world had been so overwhelming. Her body had moved all on its own, jumping down into the huge crater without even a second thought to protect the one she cared and loved most, even though she knew she didn't stand a chance against the enemy. Naruto had fears that she would leave him, and she had the same fears. Scared of opening her heart more to the blonde ninja, thinking he would find her weak and useless, being left behind by her crush, her boyfriend. Hinata-chan. Gasping in surprise, Hinata whipped her head around to see Naruto standing behind her at the beginning of the dock. She had been so deep in her own thoughts, she had been completely oblivious to someone coming up behind her. What kind of ninja am I to let my guard down like that? If that had been an enemy, I would have been dead. Her eyes fell on the small bouquet of flowers in his hands. Lilacs. Those are. Naruto scratched the back of his head and couldn't help but shift from foot to foot in nervousness and guilt. He had been watching her for a few minutes, seeing the tears rolling down her face. Tears that he has caused. Can we talk? Hinata wiped the tears from her eyes and nodded. Sighing with relief that she was actually willing to talk to him was the first good sign that he could fix this. Swallowing the lump in his throat, he slowly approached Hinata where she sat on the end of the wooden dock with her legs dangling over the edge. Moving the flowers to his right hand, he took a seat beside her, leaving his left hand free to grasp her smaller one in his. He half expected for her to jerk her hand out of his, but she didn't. Instead, she squeezed his hand back. A sort of awkward silence engulfed them as Naruto tried to find the right words to explain himself, and he ended up blatantly telling Hinata the truth like he always did. I got scared, whispered Naruto. Hinata lifted her gaze from their locked hands to look at him, her pale violet eyes shining in the moonlight. I've been alone most of my life, and I've always longed to have someone welcome me home, to have physical and emotional contact with someone. It was the first thing I ever dreamed about before becoming Hokage. Then when finally I got what I wished for, I was overwhelmed with a happiness that I have never felt before in my life. Naruto stopped for a moment, placing the flowers in his hand down so that he could reach forward and caress Hinata's cheek. She leaned into his touch, welcoming the contact which made Naruto relax more and speak from his heart. I've been so happy these past 8 months, and I started to think I was living in a dream. I tried to see this from a logical point of view and couldn't figure out what you see in me in the first place. I'm someone who has a demon sealed in his body, and I'm with the heir to the Hyuga clan, who are practically royalty in Konoha. Thinking only of the negative things, it got to me. The thought of you realizing that I'm not, that you, thinking you would leave me, and it just hurt so much that I couldn't stand it. So I thought if I broke it off first, it wouldn't hurt as much. Hinata remained silent. Deep down, she wanted to wipe all his fears away but continued to listen, letting him get his worries off his chest. After seeing you cry like that, getting punched by Kiba, and then getting a tongue lashing from Niji made me realize that I was just being a total idiot, tossing aside the best thing that has ever happened to me like that. And you have every right use your Juho Sashiken on me. He could feel tears welling up in his eyes, mentally lecturing himself for hurting her in the first place and making her cry. The hand caressing her cheek left for a moment to pick up the lilacs at his side and present them to her. I'm an idiot, but I want to be your idiot. I can be really dense and stupid at times, and I know that that sounds like an excuse for what I did, but I'm sorry, Hinata-chan. I'm so sorry for what I said to you, and I take everything back. Tears started to fall from his eyes. I want to keep us going. I know it will be scary, and I'm sure I've got some traits and habits that make you mad, but if you can look past that, I want us to stay together. Naruto watched as a small smile formed on her lips and her own free hand coming up to take the flowers from his. She brought them up to her nose to smell their sweet aroma. Setting them on the dock beside her, she raised her hand again to rest it on his whiskered cheek. A soft blush dusted her cheeks as she finally realized he had called her Hinata-chan. I've been scared too, thinking that Naruto-kun would want to leave me as well. Blue eyes widened upon hearing her similar fear to his. I still sometimes see myself as weak, useless, as someone who cannot change. I usually think these things when you're not around, but whenever I'm with you, those fears just melt away. I've told you many times before, Naruto-kun, that you being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi doesn't bother me at all, she whispered, pulling his head down to hers so that their noses brushed against each other. Her fingers lightly traced the birthmark whiskers on his cheeks, and Naruto couldn't help but shiver under her touch. I know what you mean, and when I was with you I never even thought of those things before, but after what Sasuke said to me. He couldn't finish his sentence as Hinata pressed her lips against his. Any worry or doubt that had been in his mind flew out the window as he returned the kiss eagerly. The hand on her cheek moved into her hair, feeling the silky strands move through his fingers. Their lips caressed one another, never breaking as they rekindled the lost contact. Naruto realized how much he had missed kissing Hinata, and not having that contact for 2 weeks made him wish it never ended. Hinata pulled his face closer to hers, tilting his head slightly to the side to deepen the kiss. Fingers continued caressing his whiskered cheek as she savored the taste of him, an addiction she had started to crave ever since their first kiss. Too soon for them, they pulled apart, gasping for air as their eyes stayed locked. I forgive you, Naruto-kun. The blonde ninja couldn't help but smile. I'll make it up to you, Hinata-chan, and I promise I won't ever make you cry again, unless it's tears of happiness. Hinata couldn't help but giggle as she bumped her nose against his. Next time, though, if you ever have fears or doubts about anything between us, let's talk about it, okay? I don't want for you or me to just suddenly jump to conclusions. I promise, Naruto whispered, closing his eyes and claiming her lips again. Their kisses became more desperate, their breathing and heartbeats increasing by the moment. When air became essential again, they pulled apart, gasping. Hinata-chan, he whispered again, leaning in to kiss her, but was surprised when her fingers pressed against his lips, stopping him. I think it's time we stopped for tonight, since it's almost 1 in the morning. Naruto smiled and was about to protest, but couldn't argue as a yawn escaped his lips. Point taken. Hinata pecked him on the lips one last time before moving to stand up, and Naruto followed after her. Their hands never letting go as they made their way back through the garden. Feeling tired, yet playful, Hinata couldn't help the idea she formed when she released Naruto's hand from hers. Smiling, she lightly tapped him the shoulder, whispering, "You're it," before breaking in a run towards her house. "Hey, no fair!" cried Naruto, taking off after her as she weaved in and out gracefully through the trees and bushes. Her laughter was music to his ears as they continued their game of tag throughout the garden. It was as if the past 2 weeks had never happened and everything was back to the way it was before. At one point, with Naruto being it, he caught sight of his girlfriend making a break towards the Hyuga house and moved to stop her. He meant to just move in front of her to block the path, but without seeing a rock hidden by some lilies, he tripped. Hinata didn't have time to move or catch Naruto as he came toppling onto her. She found herself on her back in the lush green grass with Naruto on top of her. A blush quickly spread across her cheeks. She could feel one of his legs between her own. Naruto braced his upper body on his elbows with her head resting between them, their lips a mere inch from touching. Their gazes locked as they tried to slow down their breathing from running around the garden. Naruto couldn't help but stare down at her in awe. Seeing the stars above reflected in Hinata's eyes made her seem more beautiful to him. Before he could even think about the compromising position they were in, Naruto leaned his head down to kiss Hinata on the lips. A new feeling swept over him, something he had not felt before. Being in this position, him on top and her below, made his body shiver in a whole new and wonderful way. Hinata, at first, felt nervous and even slightly scared with Naruto on top of her, but her worries soon left when his lips found hers. Soft, dainty hands that had been resting in the grass moved, with one wrapping around his shoulder to pull him closer, and the other entangled his blonde spikes to caress his scalp. The blonde emitted a soft groan as his head tilted slightly to deepen the kiss. Experimentally, Naruto wanted to try and take another step, so he opened his mouth slightly. Hinata jerked at the feeling of his tongue against her lips, which caused them to pull apart. The rose color on her cheeks intensified greatly as she stared up at Naruto with wide eyes, his face as red as hers. Sorry. I just, stuttered Naruto. He made a slight attempt to get off her, but the grip she had in his shoulder and scalp didn't lessen. The blush on her face intensified as she pulled Naruto back down to her, kissing him before she returned the favor by lightly flicking her own tongue against his lips. Feeling a shiver run up his spine from the contact, Naruto opened his own mouth and could not help the small whimper that escaped his throat as their tongues touched. He tasted her. She was warm and sweet. Shivers continued to run up and down his body as his tongue fully slipped into her mouth. If he thought kissing had been amazing, this new experience created something on a whole new level. He couldn't help but smirk inwardly as Hinata fought back and pushed his tongue back so she could explore the contours of his mouth. If she hadn't been lying down, Hinata was afraid she would have passed out by now. Her hand gently fisted in his hair to pull him closer, allowing her to taste more of him. Regular kissing had been addicting enough, but this, it was as if she couldn't get enough of it. Both were lost in the sensations of their tongues massaging one another. Small sounds of whimpers were slowly filling the quiet garden. Hinata felt him shift slightly, moving his left arm so that all of his weight went onto his right elbow. His body leaned more into her, deepening their kisses even more, if that was possible. She could feel his hand move along her side before slipping under her back. Her hands in his hair and on his back, the taste of her, the smell of her skin, the sounds she made were clouding his brain. He felt something new awaken within him, a deep feeling in the pit of his stomach. Instinctively, his hips moved forward, grinding against hers. Both of them froze as they felt it. Hinata's face turned even redder at the feeling of something hard against her thigh. Eyes slowly fully opened as she watched him pull his body off of hers, rising to his knees. His face was even more crimson than hers, hands and body shaking slightly as his clouded brain cleared and he fully realized what was going on. Naruto let out a shaky breath and was not sure on how to take Hinata's reaction to this. He hadn't meant for it to happen, but being surrounded by her like that, he had just Her eyes were still wide, and she was panting heavily beneath him. IJMSSS, stuttered Naruto. Did you apologize when this thing kind of happened? Hinata slowly pushed herself up, lightly nudging her head against his before kissing his whiskered cheek. Don't be sorry, she whispered into his ear. It's okay. Leaving one hand on the ground for support, she raised the other to lightly caress his face. The shaking in his body stopped, and his racing heart started to calm down. Closing his eyes, he moved his head to rest it on her shoulder, taking in the smell of her hair. He could still feel the slight constricting in his pants and tried to take deep breaths to compose himself. However, being so close to her and the memory of the kiss did the exact opposite. Images from what he had read in his sensei's books suddenly came to mind, and the thought of doing that with Hinata. The sound of loud footsteps from the Hyuga house caused the two push away from each other and move to their feet. Naruto was half expecting Niji to come flying out of the shoji, but instead it was Tintin who came running out and closed it behind her. We've got to move now, she hissed, grabbing Naruto by the arm and dragging him towards the wall. What the hell? Asked a baffled Naruto, and didn't get a chance to say any more as Tintin leapt into the air with him in tow. They landed on the other side, and he was slammed into the wall with her hand covering his mouth. Lower your chakra to a bare minimum and don't make a sound. Wondering briefly what the hell she was talking about, he was about to protest when a familiar presence caught his attention. Eyes widening, Naruto did as he was told and listened as he heard the shoji slide open again. Hinata, why are you out in the garden so late? The sound of Hayashi's voice sent a chill down his spine, and not the good kind he had been experiencing moments ago. Both ninjas listened as Hinata and her father talked before they heard the shoji close again with both Hyugas inside. Sighing in relief, Tintin released Naruto and stepped away from him. That was close. I thought he was gone, whispered Naruto, following after the weapons ninja as they made their way to the main street and away from the Hyuga complex before anyone saw them. He wasn't supposed to be back until tomorrow. Luckily, though, Niji saw him coming before he came through the front gates, so I was able to make a run for it. Nodding softly, Naruto finally relaxed as they turned down the main road in the village. For the first time in 2 weeks, Naruto felt completely happy again, and if at any time Hinata felt like kicking his ass for his almost idiotic move, he would take it without complaint. The wear and tear of the long day soon took its toll on him, and H couldn't help as another yawn escaped his lips. You should be lucky that Hinata forgave you. Naruto turned to Tintin and nodded. I'm one lucky fool, he admitted. Getting close to his new apartment, Naruto was about to bid Tintin a good night and thank her for saving his butt from Hayashi, but something caught his attention. Tintin, why are you wearing your shirt inside out?
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.